Euzubillahimineşşeytanirracim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi şrah li sadri ve yessir li emri ve hlul ukdeten min lisani yefqahu kavli. Allahumme salli ala seyyidina Muhammed ve ala alihi. Selamun aleyküm ve rahmetullahi ve berekatuhu. Inshallah, we will continue with the fifth remark of the 23rd word. In the fifth remark, I studied the first aspect a little bit, and then we will continue, inshallah, with the second aspect.
Man has been sent to this world as an official and guest, and has been given abilities of great significance. And he has been entrusted with important duties in accordance with those abilities. In order to employ man in fulfilling those aims and duties, powerful encouragement and severe threats have been made. We shall here summarize the fundamentals of worship and of man's duties, which we have explained at length elsewhere, so that the mystery of the most excellent of patterns may be understood. On coming into the universe, man has two aspects of worship and being a slave of God's. One is worship and contemplation in the absence of the object of worship. The other is worship and supplication in his presence and addressing him directly. First aspect. It is to affirm submissively the sovereignty of dominicality apparent in the universe and to observe its perfections and virtues in wonder. Then it is to proclaim and herald the unique arts which consist of the inscriptions of the sacred divine names and to display them to others. Then it is to weigh on the scales of perception the jewels of the dominical names, which are all like hidden treasures. It is to appreciatively affirm their value with the discerning heart. Then it is to study and ponder over in wonder the pages of beings and leaves of the earth and sky, which are like missives of the pen of power. Then, through beholding admiringly the adornment and subtle arts in beings, it is to feel love for knowledge of their all-beauteous Creator, and to yearn to ascend to the presence of their all-perfect Maker and to receive His favors. Second aspect. This is the station of presence and address wherein man passes from the work to the producer of the work. And he sees that an all-beauteous Maker wants to make himself known and acquainted through the miracles of his own art, and he responds with knowledge and belief. Then he sees that an all-compassionate Sustainer wants to make himself loved through the fine fruits of his mercy. So through confining his love and worship to him, he makes himself love him. Then he sees that an all-generous bestower is nurturing him with the delights of bounties, material and immaterial, and in return he offers him thanks and praise with his actions, conduct, words, and as far as he can, with all his senses and faculties. Then he sees that an all-beauteous and glorious one is announcing his tremendousness and perfection and glory and beauty in the mirrors of these beings, and is drawing attentive gazes to them. So in response he declares, God is most great, glory be to God, and in humility prostrates in love and wonder. Then he sees that a possessor of absolute riches is displaying his boundless wealth and treasuries amid an absolute munificence. So in response, exalting and praising him, he entreats and asks for them, expressing his utter need. Then he sees that the all-glorious Creator has made the face of the earth like an exhibition and displayed on it all his antique works of art. So in response, he exclaims in appreciation, what wonders God has willed, and in admiration, what blessings God has bestowed. And in wonder, glory be to God, and in astonishment, God is most great. Then he sees that in his palace of the universe, a single one of unity has struck seals of unity on all beings with his inimitable signature, and with his stamps, signettes, and ciphers particular to him, that he inscribes the signs of his unity, and planting the banner of unity in every region of the world. He proclaims his dominicality, and he responds with assent belief, submission, worship, and affirmation of his unity. Thus, through worship and contemplation of this kind, he becomes a true man. He shows that he is on the most excellent of patterns. Through the auspiciousness of belief, he becomes a reliable vicegerent of gods on earth, worthy of bearing the trust. O heedless man created on the most excellent of patterns, who, through the misuse of his will, is descending to the lowest of the low. Listen to me in the heedlessness induced by the intoxication of youth. I, like you, thought the world was fine and lovely. Then the moment I awoke in the morning of old age, I saw how ugly was the world's face, that was not turned towards the hereafter, which I had previously imagined to be beautiful. To see this and how beautiful was its true face, which looks to the hereafter, you may refer to the 2 signboards in the second station of the 17th word and see for yourself. The first signboard depicts the reality of the world of the people of neglect, which long ago, like the people of misguidance, I saw through the veil of heedlessness, but without being intoxicated. The second signboard indicates the reality of the world of the people of guidance. I left it in the form it was written long ago. It resembles poetry, but it is not truly that.
Jazakallah. That was a long read, but a beautiful one. Thank you.
So before we go to the second aspect, would someone, and by someone I mean Brother Birkan, like to give a summary of the first aspect?
Sure, since I'm your, what is it? The word?
Grunt.
Something follower, respectful follower. So as far as I remember, in the first aspect, we studied how worship initiates in our lives as we observe things around us, as we experience beauty, as we experience the arts, and as we experience the creation in front of us. And as we see that all these are being created, are being given to us, this is the first aspect, as to the extent I understand. I look at the creation, I see beautiful things, and I realize that these beautiful things are given to me, that they are being created in front of me, in front of my eyes. So this is the first aspect of the worship, in which I'm not yet familiar with the object of the worship. So I have this feeling of thankfulness, I have this feeling of, let's say, pleasure, satisfaction, but I don't know where to direct this thankfulness or satisfaction. And I guess this is a state of a human being, regardless of his background or beliefs, that when we find ourselves living in this world, we see these beauties, and from time to time, not always, we have this feeling of appreciation. And because most of the time we don't know where to direct it, it just dies and actually hurts us. So we already studied this kind of the details last week, as far as I remember. So in the first aspect, we are at the beginning of this journey of worship. We realize the beauty or mercy or any bounties, but we don't know, we are not familiar with the object of worship.
Are you saying right now, since we are more familiar, or we're more through our journey of belief, that we're not always having to go through the first aspect?
So, like, if I look at my own life, I find myself in the first aspect, or maybe it's not the right way to say finding yourself in the first aspect. I leave the first aspect almost every moment. Like, I look at a flower, I say, oh, it's beautiful. I start appreciating it. Sometimes I just, stop there and continue living without reaching the object of worship. So these moments, there are many moments in my life which goes, how to say, like untamed or uncultivated, like they goes for nothing. And so that means, at least from my personal experience, that it's not something like, okay, I already passed first aspect, now I'm starting living the second aspect. It's more of, with every experience, new experience, I first interact with these first aspect of things. And then if I'm, let's say, not heedless in the moment, I can go to the second aspect as well.
Okay.
And with the second aspect, as far as I understand from the whole text, that we will discuss, inshallah, in detail, but it's more about our responses, how we respond to what we see, and from what we see, how to reach the Maker, and then how get familiarized with the Maker. This is what I understand with the second aspect.
Okay, I guess let's start with this second aspect. I guess last week, I remember we were discussing this, and I had some questions. We didn't get to the second aspect, but I was thinking, since in the first aspect we're looking at creation, and then we're seeing the beauty in it, the names, like, let's say his names within the creation. But then in the second aspect, we're supposed to now look up to him, like to get to the object of worship. Because it says here it says in one is worship and contemplation, the absence of the object of worship. So this is just looking at a flower and seeing the beauty in it. And the other is worship and supplication in his presence and addressing him directly. And the question I had last week was thinking, does this mean that I then disregard the flower, or like I kind of ignore the flower and somehow then just try to address the creator of the flower? And in my mind, when I, let's say, try to address the creator, like it's usually just in my mind, I imagine like a blackness or a void. And if I'm trying to speak, and I'm thinking, is this how he's talking about it? Should it be something like this? Or should the flower be a sort of stepping stone that is still within your sight? It's not something you just disregard. So those are types of questions I had last week. And we'll see if they'll be answered by the people here. By Zainab. Mm-hmm. When we look at Zainab. Okay, so second aspect, I guess we'll start just from the first paragraph. This is the station of presence and address wherein man passes from the work to the producer of the work. And he sees that an all-beauteous maker wants to make himself known and acquainted through the miracles of his own art. And he responds with knowledge and belief. I'll also read the second one. Then he sees that an all-compassionate sustainer wants to make himself loved through the fine fruits of his mercy. So through confining his love and worship to him, he makes himself love him. So, I mean, already I'm stumped, because in the second one especially, he says that he sees an all-compassionate sustainer wants to make himself loved through the fine fruits of his mercy. Like, how does he see that? How do you even come to such a conclusion? In the first one, he says he wants to make himself known and acquainted through the miracles of his own art. I can almost maybe kind of understand that, because things are being created in front of me. Like, I guess a couple of days ago, there was like the moon was closer to the ground. It was a very big moon, maybe even yesterday or the day before. So when I look at the moon and it's like just very bright and shining, like this, like in the sky, it's in the night, it's very beautiful, and I see that it's being created. And I like, this exists for a reason, and I can see that, you know, I can almost see that there's someone that wants to make himself known behind us. But then this next step, he wants to make himself loved through the fine fruits of his mercy. I'm not sure how he sees that. Also, how do you then, he makes himself loving. So through confining his love and worship to him, he makes himself love him. How do you love this creator? Like, what is this thing that you are loving that is absolute? How can you even love that? These are just the questions I have. So I am not a moderator, so you guys can speak, and I will moderate.
Okay. A step forward I take is to say that, so we acknowledge in the first aspect, that there are beautiful things in the world. There's art and amazing, things that make us contemplate. And the step I'd take, and then I think as a part of it is that we acknowledge that there's a creator, right? That there's something that made this. The step I'd take is to acknowledge this as an act of mercy. There's no need for this to have been there. There's nothing necessitating that things be beautiful, or for us to recognize it as such. And so that's an act of mercy, that it is as such. That we can appreciate a flower, or a full moon, or an experience. And so the next step would be to how we would realize that this to be a way that, to me, that God would want himself to be loved through that. You know what I'm saying?
Not really.
So you asked the question how seeing an all-compassionate sustainer would want to make himself loved through the fine fruits of his mercy. And I also am not able to cross that, but I'll make a step. Does that make any sense?
So is it like in here the difference I see is, for example, if I see a beautiful art, a beautiful moon, let's say you go to art museum and you are seeing pictures in there and you appreciate the beauty in there, but the artist is already dead. I mean, it's not even crossing my mind to interact with the artist because I know that the artist is long gone.
Yeah.
How am I going to? Of course, it would be awesome if possible. I would like to interact with the artist. I guess this happens more with the books. If the author is still alive, comes for like signature days, like they put signatures, and if you are very much in awe of the book and the style of the author, you would like to go to this signature days and get to know the author, whatever. So in my experience with the existence, the first thing that I come across is a full moon. And as much as I'm going through those contemplation stages, if I listen to myself, if I do not simply ignore the feeling of awe when I see those full moon, I say, I guess this is where the contemplation happens. It's not automatic. Like, I mean, it's awesome moon. I mean, this part is more or less automatic. But listening to myself, what's going on with this? Why am I getting excited? Moon is there, I am here. It's so unrelated, so distant. Yet there's this feeling is also being like flowing or gushing forth from my heart, if you like. So what does this mean? This sort of thing is going to lead me to, I would like to respond to or interact with the maker of this full moon. And it's not distant from me. It's not like the artist is already dead centuries ago. But I have this love, this is just accumulating in me, but knowing that the artist is accessible to me. This part is, I guess, the main jump. Then I would like to immediately respond. And it's possible, it's available for me. But am I seeing this door open to me? Am I aware of that? I guess this awareness clicking in is the beginning of the second stage. Because contemplation is giving me the feeling of love and appreciation and everything, but then taking the next stage of being able to realize that I can communicate actually, or I can respond back. I am being heard by the artist as well. It's not a one-way communication. It's not that the artist has painted it and just is gone. It makes things much more lively, much more real. And like this showing appreciation is in there, but even if it was there and the artist was dead, you would be doomed. But no, the conversation can take place as if this is what I'm understanding from here.
So you're saying that, let's say you look at a full moon, it's very bright, and then you feel some sort of joy or love within you. It's created in you. And you read this as, he created this within me, so he wants to make himself loved.
Mm-hmm. Can I add on to that? I think just along with it, not only is it this transition from a monologue, right, that I have of observing the moon and talking about how lovely it might be created, but I enter into this dialogue, into this active, dynamic relationship, where I not only enjoy the joy that the moon gives me, but that moon is a specifically written love letter to me from my creator. I was meant to experience that particular moment. It's specified for me. And it's this active conversation that starts to take place, where I respond with the feelings that it brings in me, and it responds back by giving me news of those feelings.
Rather than it being like a general art meant for the society, but the artist doesn't know you personally, and you're benefiting from there, and artist is not hearing you. Rather than that, artist meant me to specifically enjoy it.
But if the artist isn't there, then how do you then take that feeling and give it to him or use it with him?
Yeah, if artist is not there, you cannot do that, right?
Yeah.
So
but God isn't there either, like in a way you can perceive.
I think this is the second aspect, this recognition. Am I aware that? So
no, but even if you know he exists, it's not in any way I can perceive or imagine or anything. So how do I even form this relationship?
Yeah. So this is, I guess, the topic in here. To arrive into a conclusion that, or being sure that I am being heard. This is why he said it is the station of presence and address. I am sure and feeling his presence. And now, since I am feeling his presence and seeing myself at a level of being the addressee so that I can have a conversation. Because at the previous stage, I was not there yet. I didn't know that I was not sensing the presence. I was seeing the art, but the presence of artist was not, he was distant.
Yeah.
So this distance is closed with the contemplation stages that he mentioned in the first aspect. As if I was climbing ladders, I was getting closer in my perception. In theory, he is always present, but this is in theory, but I am distant from him.
So it's the idea that once you realize, or you're in that consciousness that you're in his presence, or he's like, you see his presence in like where you are,
mm-hmm.
Then with this presence of him is what you form that relationship with that love you have, is then you can use this with him or form a relationship with him with this love by saying, I know that you realize, or like, I know that you're responding to me when I speak to you or when I love you, which I still don't know what it means really, but let's say speaking, that's easier than love. Like, if I speak to him, because that was like, for example, I remember 2 days ago or yesterday, I did look at the moon, and at first I was just enjoying the moon and then how it was shining and its light. I was like, it's very beautiful, like just like in the first aspect. And the second aspect, I was thinking, what about the creator of the moon? I wanted to also then speak to him. And in my mind, I just imagined like a void, and I just like, let's say, made a prayer or something like that. So speaking to him, maybe, or I realized his presence and I spoke to him, and I recognized that he heard me, or he was there to hear me, like I was sure of that. And this is what it means to then, you're saying what the second aspect is. It's about the recognizing his presence part of it.
I guess so. Do you see yourself at the position to start this conversation? I think this is a very important step. So think about it this way. Even if, let's say now we are reading Nursi's writings. If Nursi was in this room, physically,
but still, it will take time for you, I guess, to warm up, to be able to feel comfortable to start a conversation with him. Although physically you are in the same room with him, you will maybe think that he is very like a superstar, whatever.
I'll start with a joke.
So you will beat you and this will be it. Even this even happens in human relationships. Like starting the conversation requires this, if you like, frequencies becoming similar or some sort of. I mean, if you don't feel comfortable talking to that person, you are not starting the conversation. I mean, at best you can make a joke, but something like, I would say, a serious transformation of information, emotions, whatever, happens after there is an alignment, sort of. So as much as I am distant, I'm not even having the courage to talk. And I'm not feeling like it. And I very well know this. When I open my hands at work, my head is just in the last plot that I was drawing. Shall it be purple or green? So I'm thinking about the colors. And then opening my hands, and of course, I mean, it's just my mouth is saying some memorized words. And I'm not there. I'm not feeling the presence of the creator or anything. So it's just being uttering of words. I mean, practically, this is what we experience day to day.
I think the act of seeing, using the moon example again, seeing the moon is not different from being in a conversation than with my creator. I think the moment it brings in me any sort of feeling, whether that's how ugly it is or how beautiful it is, my creator, that's my creator speaking to me. However, it's a matter of whether I respond to that. So if I don't, then it is a monologue, but it's a one-way monologue from my creator to me. And then when I start to say, wow, my creator is speaking to me through the feeling that this experience inspires within me, then I actively decide to engage in a dialogue. So I don't think the experience and the conversation are two separate events in a sense. I think they're one and the same. It's just a matter of whether I realize that I am part of a conversation or not.
So when I was reading the parts that you highlighted, Abdurrahman, a beauty's maker wants to make himself known. Sustainer wants to make himself loved. So I was thinking about them. For newcomers, by the way, we are studying the second aspect of 23rd word, fifth remark. The second aspect. So I was thinking, like, what does it mean? A beauty's maker wants to make himself known, or all compassionate sustainer wants to make himself loved. For some reason, I remember it probably because we just studied it recently. I remember the staff of Moses, that he carries this staff, which is a dry wood. The creator asked him what he's holding in his right hand. He says, it's my staff. I shake leaves with it, I stand on it, whatever. And then when he throws the staff, when he leaves his previous understanding of the world, of the creation behind, he sees the staff becomes a living creature, moving smoothly. So this is a very far-fetched connection. I'm apologizing beforehand in advance. But for some reason, it reminded me this, like, I look at things, I look at the moon, I look at a child, I look at my spouse, my partner, whatever, my friends. And yes, I enjoy them, but they're just dry wood first. They have their utilities, they are beautiful, but they're not lovely, they're lively. They're not alive yet. And then the feeling of love, for instance, in me, or the notion of knowledge that I have. We all have this notion, right? We know about things. We want to know about things. So knowledge, love, these are not far the concepts, that they are not introduced through, let's say, revelation. We have them in our life. But before revelation, meaning before realizing that things are being created, they are like just dry woods, like they have their utilities. When I know about things, I can, for instance, produce technology, whatever. But through revelation, through realizing that they are being created, first they become lively. Like they are being created in front of me. I am given knowledge. And it's mind. It's a lively being. It's alive. But at the same time, they move. They move smoothly. Like my love, for instance, takes me somewhere. It doesn't stay there. Like I need to love something. It's like it doesn't stay there. My knowledge, or the knowledge I have, it doesn't stay there. It searches for something. I need to learn something. So I cannot be happy, I cannot be, let's say, free. Just knowing that, I have this capacity to know something, I have this capacity to love, or I have this feeling of love when I look at flowers. I cannot feel comfortable unless I can find where this love is taking me. What am I going to love? And because I don't know the answer to these questions, I try it everywhere. I try to love beautiful girls, I try to love handsome boys, I try to love flowers, I try to love, moon. I try. I'm searching for it. It's moving in me. I'm trying to seize it. It's the same thing, knowledge. Knowledge, it takes me somewhere. It doesn't stay there. I have to learn about something. Imagine yourself, in this era, especially, in front of the computer. You will open, 10, 20, 30 different tabs in your browser. You will read something, you will see one, word, which is interesting. You will say, oh, I should learn about it. What does it mean? You will click. It will take you somewhere. You will click another one. It will take you somewhere. At the end, you will look at the screen. You are reading something on Mars. You started with, what you should buy for a newborn baby. Should I buy this brand of what's this? Diapers, or another brand of diapers? And after a few, let's say, minutes, you reading about the microbes on Mars. So the knowledge doesn't stay there; it takes you somewhere. You cannot seize it. And I guess the author is saying that, when you realize this, when your knowledge becomes alive, when you realize it's being created, you look for what you should know. And author says this knowledge actually takes you to its source. You should know him, or you should love him. This is where it takes you. And how you know that? You try everything else. You realize that all these objects that you try are not the object of worship, or are not the object of love. Love inside me is not for these women, or these boys, or these flowers, or these moons, whatever. It's not for that. It's not satisfied there. It couldn't find its object there. So it takes you, the true object of worship, and you say that, oh yes, this object of worship wants to be loved. It wants to be known. This is what I understand. That, like when he says wants to be known, I understand the knowledge in me search for something. The love in me search for something. Like I am being attracted, I am being pulled. This is what I understand.
Thank you. I'll ask you a question about it. But first, Suhail, you had your hand up for a long time. Could you make your comment?
My question is simply, how about something you don't like? Some sort of hurricane, blizzard, tornado, flood. What about that?
I guess I should answer this.
It doesn't matter.
Because you said even if I find it ugly, I should still.
I don't think it matters. I mean, it's still, first of all, I see the tornado, or I feel the earthquake, and it makes me feel fear, or just the feeling of I don't want this to be happening. That too is a form of communication with the one who's making that certain event happen. It's not a matter of whether I love something or like something or dislike it or hate it. It's a matter of the fact that I'm able to feel that I'm able to have that sort of relation with it. That opens the pathway to communicating with its source.
Could you expand on why or how you can communicate when, even if it's something bad or good? Like why do you see that as a communication?
Well, I mean, like I said, I mean, what's something I don't like? All right, going back to the earthquake example, I mean, it's just a matter, like I'm not neutral towards it, right? There's a inevitability of me feeling something about it. And that feeling itself is the communication between me and the one who gives me that feeling towards it, right? It's the fact that I can feel almost, rather than the content of the feelings.
So because you can feel this, I'm really trying to understand, because this is also related with the rest of the things here too. Like Birkan was saying, you want to take this love somewhere, so love him. You're saying.
I'm saying I feel the earthquake, I feel the desire to not want it. That makes me think, I want stability, I want security, I want a source that makes me feel not shaken up, that makes me feel secure in my current existence. I mean, that the feeling of not wanting it also shows to me what I do want. And all of this is part of that communication process that makes me know, that equates me with myself. So through a particular event, through a particular dislike, my creator is still saying, hey, like, learn about yourself through this. And through that process of learning about myself, I come to know to which source I can direct my gaze so that those needs and wants will be fully satisfied and made secure. I mean, that's my initial take. I'm sure others have more to add in depth to it.
Thank you. Suhail says, should I love an earthquake even though I don't love it?
You love the earthquake? Or
You can meta love it, yeah.
You can meta love it is the answer. Or should I love Satan even though I don't like what he whispers to me?
Satan's non-existent. So
I think those questions are answered now. Brother Yusuf.
Hocam.
We'll probably come back to this if Yusuf probably doesn't touch on it.
So I'll first take it as an example. So last week, at a continuation for the last week from Lord of the Rings, where we left. So in the story, within the plot of the story, okay, there's this beautiful hobbit town, Hobbiton, but there's also Mordor in there. So like there are some dark things being depicted, or dark creatures, but also there are beautiful, shiny things are happening there. So there's Rivendell, but also there's this Mordor or whatever. But within the plots, once you go through it, once you read why every, as I start understanding every item within the plot, although let's say Gollum is very disturbing to me, then I appreciate Gollum being there because it was necessary for Gollum to be within that plot. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to get what the author was telling me. So if, likewise, in my, let's say, professor in the university, yeah, when I'm taking the class, those hard assignments were not something that I liked, but afterwards, now I'm appreciating the hard assignment as well. And after seeing its value, so I guess it required, in my side, some training. Yeah, initially when I see this hard assignment, my automatic reaction was hatred. And is this guy trying to just fail us? Is he trying to satisfy himself by showing how smart he is, how stupid we are? And these are the very initial and automatic reactions that comes. But as I start realizing that actually putting those hard assignments was also part of my training, yes, still it was challenging to me. And it's not like I like hard assignments as much as I like ice cream. Like they're of different sorts for sure. But now I'm able to appreciate hard assignments. Now coming to a harder example of earthquake. So my initial reaction to earthquake or death is it's horrible. Death is horrible. But as much as I realize through death, I am getting to know the eternal one, and I'm getting to achieve eternity through death. Death is being my teacher, if you like, to realize the eternal one, or my yearning for eternal one, I get to know it, or my yearning for eternity, I get to know it through death. So death becomes my lovely teacher to reach eternity. So once I see the big picture, then in a sense, maybe indirectly, I am being now in good terms with death. Not that I am loving death again, but now I am appreciating death. So if you would like to now change the description of love in there, yes, I can be loving death as well. But this love is not the same sort of love that loving the first sight or loving of ice cream, sort of a love. It's not an initial reaction that you would say. So for the Satan, for example, I mean, I would love a teacher. So Satan initially is this dark and evil and thing as it's being like caricaturized. But if I take it as, if I start defining what Satan is, those whispers, those, if you like, options, there is one God, well, maybe there's 12 gods, 10 gods, whatever. All these are representatives of Satan, or whispers of Satan. But through those options, I get to realize one option being right. So the other options become something that helps me to get the right answer. So I do appreciate multiple choice tests rather than open-ended questions. So for example, so then I will appreciate Satan as well, if I take it as such. So it requires, I guess, redefinition, and it requires evaluation as well. So nobody initially likes Gollum, but I am pretty sure there are a lot of fans of Gollum.
What you're saying is, you, through contemplation, you realize the purpose of good and bad things. You don't appreciate the bad things in and of themselves, but for the purpose they provide.
Yeah.
So Suhail said, I will leave this prophetic saying to ponder on. And he also says Satan is real.
So
Where did that come from?
Should I click it?
you can, if you like.
Well, he says ponder upon. No. Okay, I'll click it.
You are the moderator if you
Well,
like.
then why are you telling me to click?
No, I'm just helping you with the technology. That's all.
He's like micromanaging the moderator.
I feel like I've been commanded to read this by the true moderator. It was narrated from Abu Hurairah that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, do not curse the wind, for it is from the mercy of Allah, bringing rahmah or destruction, but ask Allah for its goodness and seek refuge with Allah from its evil. But ask Allah for its goodness and seek refuge with Allah from its evil. How do I go back? Okay, so we're saying everything can be good, or everything, even an earthquake or the full moon, every event, if I can realize or I can recognize him, then it becomes good for me. This is what we're saying. I guess the issue I'm still having is, let's say something bad happens and then it helps me find him. Okay, but then or it helps me communicate with him. Then what is this communicating with him part of it? Or what is this realizing him part of it? So far from what you said, what I understand is it's just realizing his presence, realizing that he exists and he's watching and that he's always there. And once you realize this is what communication is, or this is what recognizing him or finding him is. It's just realizing his presence, being conscious of him. And loving him would then just mean you realize that this love is being created and that he is there. And is this what we're saying loving him is? Is there an object of love? Suhail, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that as it pertains to this prophetic saying and sort of what Norsi's saying, is that, even it doesn't matter. The prophet says the wind, an earthquake, a moon, a flower, they can all essentially be evil for me or pure good for me. It depends on my perspective. I don't like the translation of the prophetic saying because it doesn't say rain and breezes. It just says bringing mercy or destruction, but ask God for its goodness and seek refuge with God from its evil. Evil, essentially, as was said a little earlier, I think was our perception. So the question is, how do I perceive a thing? So in that sense, does it become evil for me or good for me? And that, as Yusuf, I think, was alluding to earlier, the first question is, what do I see in that experience in and of itself? Do I see anything, first of all, do I see any communication happening? And question I have to ask myself, I don't know the brother's name who said earlier, is it even necessary for whoever made that thing, that event, even if it's something I quote unquote don't like, as in I don't like an earthquake in the sense of it disrupts my perception of what order should be. But do I even acknowledge the fact that something's happening where I'm communicating with it? Like I can actually feel that, as Aisha Noor was saying. I can actually have a relationship with it that otherwise isn't apparently necessary. So in this regard, do I see the thing that makes it good is the fact that it's operating as a communication, or as Norsi says, signboard. Because fundamentally, I desire, while I desire sort of beauty or love or mercy or compassion, it can't be just undirected. It has to be sort of coming from somewhere. Like I have to, like the quote unquote sort of human element is that what's the relationship? Like, so what if something is beautiful, I appreciate it. I mean, it becomes an evil for me because I know that beauty is transient, that mercy is transient. But the goodness of a thing is that am I seeing it as a signboard or a signpost, as a sort of communication from its source of existence, who under his command, his dominion, now as Norsi talked about, I think in the first aspect, in all things, I mean, is his dominion, and sort of demonstrate to his names, or I guess the hidden treasury of his names, the perfections of his names, which I'm really after. I'm really after that relationship with him. And in this regard, I don't desire the things in the universe, or I'm not after or longing for the things in the universe. I'm longing for their source of existence. And by these events, do I see he's exercising his mercy to me? Because what can it be other than mercy that he makes himself known to me through this communication so that I may recognize his all-encompassing mercy and be sort of connected to that? I mean, that in and of itself is merciful. by making his mercy known through even the things I don't like, because I realize it's the thing itself I'm after is not here in the universe. I'm longing for him, not the thing here. So I can't get caught up in the world in and of itself, but it's just simply sort of educating me or reminding me or exposing me to who I'm really am in search of. That's why, the last thing I'll say is, at least, I'm in medicine, and people, like if somebody's ill, let's say they have cancer, for example, or they're on their deathbed, sometimes they view the thing they're experiencing, let's say a disease or illness, as a sort of an evil in and of itself. Like it's something I have to fight against. But what are you fighting against? It's like you're fighting against the will of the Creator. I can't comprehend that. Rather than saying, in other words, that illness becomes an evil for you. Not just simply as your perception, but you think, this thing is an evil. This cancer is itself an evil. Rather than it's just operating as it's made to be. What is so evil about it in and of itself? Instead of seeing it, is cancer a mercy from the Creator of the universe? That's a radically different perspective. Because then it makes known that I value life, I value perfection, I value order, I value eternity, and those values, what I appreciate, that I realize, can only be bestowed by Him, because He's the source of those perfections. I mean, the perfection of life is eternal life. The perfection of, mercy is absolute mercy. That's what I'm really after. So in other words, all things I see as being pure good, rather than evil in and of itself.
So I guess within the context of this text, how author takes things, like he's not talking about a good or evil or the beautiful, ugly. But for instance, in the fourth paragraph, he says, then he sees that an all beauteous and glorious one. In the original text, the words Jalal and Jamil is used. So glory, Jalal, is sometimes also related to things like earthquake, volcano, whatever. But anyway, all beauteous and glorious one is announcing his tremendousness and perfections and glory, his Jalal, and beauty, his Jamal, in the mirrors of these beings, and is drawing attentive gazes to them. So I guess author is summarizing all we discussed. Whether it is good or bad, whether you like it or whether you don't like it, doesn't matter. You have this feeling. For instance, you hate something, which pushes you away, right? When you hate something, you can't even stand looking at it. When you love something, you cannot help yourself up looking at it. There is always this attraction towards one way or another way. You are attracted, you are pulled somewhere. So I guess also just to highlight for us and the ayah messages, I recommend reading it. I suggest reading it. It's really important. The ayahs talk about messages and how we take them. So I have this feeling, I hate something, it pushes me away, or it somehow, makes me move. It moves me. And the question is how I take it. And in this second aspect, I guess author says, when we realize that everything is being created, And when we realize that we are in the presence of the object of the worship, that we acknowledge that we are being pulled towards somewhere or pushed away from somewhere, we are being located. Like we are not left alone. He's sending all these messengers, he's sending all these messages, the feelings, and he's trying to locate us somewhere. He wants to be known, for instance. This is one direction we can go, know him. He wants to be loved. That's another direction we can go, love him. He wants us to be, I don't know, afraid of power that we see or glorify the power we see in earthquake. That's another direction we take, glorify him. This is how he continues, right? So in response, he declares, Allahu Akbar, God is most great, Subhanallah, glory be to God. And in humility prostrates in love and wonder. So all these feelings are taking us somewhere, and we can take it in this second aspect as being in his presence, like he's moving us. He takes us from somewhere, puts us another place, or he attracts us from, like pushes us from somewhere, attracts us to another place, whatever. We are in his presence, we are not alone. There are all these directions that we are pulled. And I guess the question is then, what is our response? And I think this second aspect is all about our responses. Whether we just say, I don't like it, I hate it, I'm afraid of earthquakes, or we responded, I see the glory, and I say glory to him. I see this destruction, I see this power, and I say that he's the powerful one. So
because you have that feeling of awe in you, which you then respond to by
exactly. Yes.
It.
So it's all about responses. It's all about like reading the messages and then responding to them.
And evil would be seeing this powerful, awe-inspiring thing, but saying, no, it's actually not that powerful. I can defeat it or something. This would be evil. Or
you just say, I don't like it, and just...
I don't like it.
Yes, exactly, yes.
You say it's the natural plate tectonics.
Yes. Whatever.
In motion.
And you say, I am under the whims of these blind forces, tectonics. Like I cannot control them, and they can kill me.
Mm.
Or on the other one, you responded, you realize that you are in his presence, and you say that my creator is the most powerful one. He can even move all these tectonic plates. So when I need something, when I want to not to die, when I want to live eternally, right? If I look at these plates, layers of the earth, they cannot provide me this. But if I responded properly and say that my creator is that much powerful, then I say, okay, I'm in the right hands. I'm in safety.
Oh, mashallah. Would you like to read this?
You have one right, if you want to read.
Please read that.
Bismillah. Thank you, H. Beyza. So, a comment from H. Beyza to everyone. My immediate experience of a dislike of a thing, she says, my immediate experience of a dislike of a thing, when I don't like something, my immediate response looks to the desires of the perfection or permanence of that thing or its opposite. So my immediate experience is that I want perfection and permanence in my life. This is what she says. Of course, my interpretation. It draws my attention to my own creativeness. It draws my attention to my own creativeness. As author says, it draws my attention. Like when I see earthquake, it draws my attention. And for H. Beyza, attention to her own creativeness, the consciousness behind how I am being made to feel, so it redirects me to the consciousness of what I have been made to seek. The consciousness behind how I am being made.
Consciousness, big C, like
Okay.
he's creating it.
Okay. Behind how I'm being made to feel so. Oh, to feel so. So I don't like it and I'm being created in this way. It takes me, she says, to realization, being aware of what I am made to seek. So through this experience, I know that I want perfection and permanence. Right? Even in my dislike of the experience, right then and there. So, okay, this is what we said already. And the perfection of anything I seek looks to the deliberate preference of my experience, of that experience, and its source of existence as being not imperfect, which fulfills that which I seek. So I'm not the moderator, I cannot, yasaklamak, prohibit or forbid people, but with your permission, if you permit me.
I don't permit you, I'm sorry.
Okay.
We are very kind.
Okay. Next week, if I'm
If you moderate,
yes,
I don't impose such rules.
I will prohibit people using sentences longer than 4 words. Just 4 words. If you cannot say it in 4 words, you can say it. Otherwise, just stop. Faraz, of course, correcting me, he says, thank you, Vahide Beyza, it's beautifully said, mashallah. Do you want me to read comments from Suhail as well?
Let me take it.
Okay.
I didn't get the last sentence, so I'm going to reread it. And the perfection of anything I seek looks to the deliberate preference of my experience, of that experience, and its source of existence as being not imperfect, which fulfills that which I seek. If you want to open this up, go ahead. I will keep reading the next comment. Suhail Dar says, so the real question is, do I see the beauty, mercy, and compassion in death? In other words, can I exclaim, glory be to God, and what wonders God has willed when I see that? Is that contentment in knowing my death is being given and taken care of? Can I exclaim, glory be to God, and what wonders God has willed when I see death? Is that contentment in knowing my death is being given and taken care of? So that is the question posed by Suhail, and then other people wrote, sorry for not writing out more clearly, and then anyways, couldn't be any more clear, it says Faraz. So if you would like to also help you in explaining, go ahead. Seeing the, he said, seeing the compassion and mercy in death. I'm not sure if that's what we're saying. I think, yes, there is wisdom in death, and that you can see that. What I'm understanding so far is every event, whether it seems to be good or bad, like whether it speaks to the side of me which feels pleasure, or it speaks to the side of me which speaks where I feel dislike, regardless of whichever kind of emotion I feel, if I can see that this emotion is being created within me, if I can see that the event is being created, and I can recognize the presence of the creator. What we're saying is that if you can recognize the presence of the creator from these events, and since we haven't really gone into this, and since that is what I'm really seeking, and that is what will fulfill me, then anything becomes, all right, I feel content in anything. So when I see death, I see that if I can, again, recognize that it is being created, it's not just my cells are dying and randomly I'm just perishing into non-existence or something like that. I can see that it is being created. There is an order to it, and I see his presence behind it. And I guess once I do see his presence behind it, and since he is the merciful one, then you do see that mercy and compassion in it because you see him. But I guess we should keep reading, but from
like one point I just want to highlight, and we said it already, but I guess even the just fact that I can feel hatred, or I can feel, I don't know, love, whatever, and the way I feel it, it's by itself, I guess, already goes into this second aspect of worship. Like when I love something or when I hate something, I cannot just, hate and that's it. It pushes me. Like it asks me for a response. When I love something, when I like something, it asks me for a response. So I cannot just, like something and continue living as if nothing happened. It shakes me. I have to respond it. And I guess here Roder is talking about all these responses that we giving. So even the fact that, I have this pull to respond something, to respond in a way, I am pulled or I am pushed. As author says, my gaze, attentive gaze, are drawn to somewhere. So this is being in his presence. Like he's not leaving you alone. He's not just leaving you by self, as you said, whatever the right way to say it. He won't left you alone. He will give you all these bounties. He will create all these things in front of you, all these artworks. But at the same time, he would create all these feelings in you so that you will respond to them. So almost like you are obliged to have a Monday dialogue.
How can you make sure your response is right? Because if I hate something, I will respond much differently than if I love something.
Maybe that's the correct way. Maybe
if I hate another person, then I would.
Yes, just go and kill him.
And
if you can do that, if you are satisfied with this, like you have these, like this is what I understand from he wants to be known or he wants to be loved. Like this love or hatred will attract you somewhere, like it will take you somewhere. You can try other object of worships, but as Hatice Beyza said, you will try all these other objects and they will fail because they are imperfect, because they are not permanent. They will fail. You will hate someone and you will take it as a message to glorify yourself. You will say, I hate him. He's not as clever as I am. He's not as innocent as I am. I hate him. You will glorify yourself. You will try to know yourself. You will try to love yourself. But because love and knowledge in you takes you him, he wants to be known, not you. He wants to be loved, not you. So you will not be satisfied. It will fail.
Meaning it will bring you a ruin?
Yes. So this is what I understand from he wants to be loved. Like you will try to love yourself. You will try to love your mother. But no, this love wants to go to his source, its source. he wants to be loved. And you will fail. It will give you nothing but
tragedy.
As verses for us sent says, when you try to do that, you will wrong to yourself.
Faraz, I see your hand, but before you, Yusuf.
So back to this earthquake example. It's a good case study. There's this chapter of earthquake, and it says when the earth is shaken, إذا زلزلت الأرض زلزالها أخرجت الأرض ما أثقالها. So the heaviness of the earth comes out, and then human says, what's going on? So this is what's happening. This part is important because let's literally take it. An earthquake happens, and then the first response is, what's going on? Why is this happening? Sort of a reaction happens. Then يومئذ تحدث أخبارها. So this is the day that we are going to say the news. So the Creator is saying that this earthquake is for a news. It's a means of communication. We are sending you news of something through this.
Is it glad tidings? Is it like a bashir or?
No, أخبار.
Okay.
News.
Okay.
So بأن ربك أوحى لها. So the earthquake is going to tell me the news that the Creator reveals to it. Then follows up يومئذ يصدر الناس أشتاتا ليروا أعمالهم فمن يعمل مثقال ذرة خيرا يره. So those people are going to see whatever. If they did good, amal, then they're going to see it. If they did bad, then they're going to see it. So now let's take it first in the literal sense, then apply to something else. So earthquake happened, and my perception in general is however I learned looking at things, I'm going to see the good news from this. I mean, same person, let's say two persons sitting next to each other, same earthquake happens. One person sees it in a certain way, the other person sees it in a certain way. If my interaction with my Creator is in a way that I am already seeing the existence as a news, then I'm going to read this earthquake in a way that it's going to tell me about the glory of my Creator. But if I have been like had a bad lens, if you like, same earthquake is going to tell me that my Creator is, or even, I don't know, Creator, it's like those tectonic movements, whatever. So it's going to give me total destruction because my life is at the hands of chance. On the other hand, if I take it as my Creator is giving existence to everything within an order, and this earthquake is part of an order, and like life is being ended, but it's not earthquake that kills, I can just keep going on with this. And in there, the earthquake is going to tell me, Khayr, in this, if you like, action, it's going to become a summary of my worldview on a case study. If I am a good in this setup, I'm going to get good out of this. If I am bad, my perception is bad or evil, I'm going to take evil out of this. And now apply it to any earthquake-like things that shakes your life. It's again a news, let's say your school, your job, whatever, something is badly shaken, and the heaviness of it is being thrown out. And then the Creator is now creating a scene to talk to me through this. But if I am living a life saying that, for example, I am the one that's governing my success in job, let's say, when this is shaken, then what am I going to read out of this? Versus if I was thinking that my ship of job is being sailed through in this turmoil through my sustainer, then I'm going to read it in a certainly different way. So this is how I guess the chapter is concluding, saying that you will, through this, we are going to show you what is good in you, what is bad in you. So it's not inherently anything is evil. So if I see it as news, if I go through the first aspect, if I see that, if I learn how to read it, then everything is going to look good to me. I will have this desire to talk to the Creator, even if it's an earthquake, because I will take it as a message. But if, on the other hand, if I don't go the first stage, if I don't read the art or anything, it's just by chance. I mean, if there's chance, then there's no art, because art requires an artist. So then I'm totally doomed anyways. But now coming to the second stage, if I am filled with this enthusiasm to talk, then it's just, if you like, this is why I guess this stage of ascension is so short. I was initially thinking that I need to climb the ladders to get close to my Creator. But then I realized in the blinking of an eye that actually He was always near me. So what Ayşenur was talking about was, so she said that they are the same thing. They cannot be separable. But I was not aware of that. So reaching to this level of understanding, then I realized, oh, He was always close to me since the very beginning, but I was not aware of Him. Once I see this flip side of the coin and realize how close He is, or start sensing the nearness or the presence as He uses in here, then the conversation starts. Because I was not part of the conversation before, I was just the recipient. But now, because what I'm in need of is, so it's not something, it sounds sometimes very dry saying that, okay, knowing His existence, what does this mean? But to apply it, for example, what is the point of being in the same room with your mother? Actually, my sister in old days used to say that, let's go to cinema. Me being an engineer-minded person, I said, for what? In the darkness, we're going to sit next to each other. So she was saying that we will have time together. And to me, it was so stupid. What's the point of, like, in the cinema, like, let's do it in a light place so that at least we can see each other. What's the point of sitting next to each other for 3 hours? It's not a common way of having time, to my perception. But definitely she was sensing some sort of a presence in there which was satisfying her. Likewise, even if the light was open, what's the point of being in the same room with my mom and feeling satisfied? So there is definitely something in me which enjoys the presence of my mom. So, but this is, if you like, the automatic reaction. But let's put some thought in it. Why am I being satisfied being in the same room with my mom? Why do I enjoy feeling her presence? And extend this to my existential insecurities. Feeling presence of my Creator, how does it satisfy me? So it's not like an official duty. Okay, I have to prove or sense His existence right now, then I'm going to be happy, or I should be, I'm supposed to be, since the author says. It's not this sort of an official or mechanical thing. This is something that we already feel on a smaller scale with our mom or sister, whatever. But what is my existential insecurity, which is going to be, if you like, annihilated once I feel the presence and start having this conversation with my Creator, and I know it when it happens. So it's not like, how do I know if it is happening or not? I mean, I know it when you never define what it means to be enjoying the presence of your mother in the same room. You said, do you have a mother? You know this feeling? That's it. You don't go any further than that, right? So I guess the same thing is in here. So it's a matter of, have you ever experienced it? If you have never, then yeah, you wouldn't know it, and I wouldn't know it. But it's not something, I don't think it's explainable, but it is something that can only be explained in the sense of my existential, sorry to use the word, insecurities. And this being covered up or satisfied with such a presence.
Faraz, please go ahead. Okay, Faraz, if you would like to make your comment, feel free, but we will then, does anyone else have some comments before we move? I guess all the text is the same, but just to cover the text, I think we should read the next paragraphs as well. Okay, the third paragraph then. Then he sees that an all-generous bestower is nurturing him with the delights of bounties, material and immaterial. Okay, Faraz says it was already very clear.
No, it was the previous comment.
Oh, right. Now he says he can't talk. Okay. Nicely. Okay, then he says, so what Nursi says in the third paragraph, then he sees that an all generous bestower is nurturing him with the delights of bounties, material and immaterial. In return, he offers him thanks and praise with his actions, conduct, words, and as far as he can, with all his senses and faculties. So this reminds me of what Brother Birkan said about he's creating these emotions in you which tug you. He's tugging you towards a certain way. And you recognizing him, your response to him is then with your actions and conduct and words as far as you can to then thank him and praise him. Then he sees that an all beauteous and glorious one is announcing his tremendousness and perfections, and glory and beauty in the mirrors of these beings, and is drawing attentive gazes to them. So in response he declares, God is most great, glory be to God, and in humility prostrates in love and wonder. I guess when it comes to the Jalal part of it, it gets more difficult. Like the easier example for me is like a lightning storm or like hearing thunder. There's so much power in it. However, there isn't so much dislike because you're not being negatively affected, let's say. But there's so much power in it that you just say, glory be to God. Like you see that there. But then when you see an earthquake, because I guess you already have this notion that comfort is what's good for you, or that you need to, or that security is in your home, not falling down or collapsing, or security is in thinking that you'll be able to live forever on this planet. Or these, if you have this type of notion, then an earthquake, immediately you would start disliking it. However, if you realize that that wasn't the purpose of your existence, and since I'm the moderator, I can use the word existence, then I guess even with an earthquake, you should just like when you see thunder or lightning, you should also just, it should just be the power part of it that you focus on. And that's the way to approach it. But if you guys have more comments, feel free, but I will keep reading. Then he sees that a possessor of absolute riches is displaying his boundless wealth and treasuries amid an absolute munificence. So in response, exulting and praising him, he entreats and asks for them, expressing his utter need. Faraz, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, sorry, actually you're going on, so I'm in two minds whether I need to say anything I want, but there's a part of me that is, I guess I want to just underline what Khadija Beza said and Birkan said and Yusuf said, everyone said. But our emotions are messengers. We, I think, all agree. This is a transformation. So first, our emotions are just our emotions. And this way of living, we all agree, like Yusuf said, when you feel it, when you live with them, you know the consequence of it, and you know what happens when you own these emotions and when you try to satisfy your needs. So those are the consequences people experience at their level, what they experience. It is, to me, not my reality, at least, to say that the transformation is such that I will no longer have a love for comfort, that I will no longer have fear of death, that I will no longer have a dislike for death. Let's say not fear of death, but dislike of death. I will no longer feel a sense of, oh, I don't want to die, if something is happening. These are the transformation that needs to happen for me, and what we, I think, very easily sometimes call presence of God. So what is it? And this is just repeating what everyone said. I will respond, not that, there is something beautiful and my response is love. No, that is pre-transfer. Now I'm saying I'm made to, like Khadija Beza said, I'm made to love something, or I'm made to dislike something. And now I'm going to read what can make me dislike death. Is not a lover of life or a living one must be behind my dislike of death. So I will communicate with those same emotions which I cannot eliminate, and I will come to what they're pointing to, read as a sign, and get to him, and they will satisfy me. So I just want to say, for example, the cancer patient will not like to have cancer, but their dislike of cancer is not the problem. That their dislike of cancer will become like, I don't think Suhail meant that, but I'm just clarifying for myself to underline that my dislike of earthquake is not going to go away, but my dislike of earthquake will no longer be my desire for life that cannot be met here in this world, and therefore which tortures me. And it is precisely because that torture, and I think to the extent of that torture, that I value the transformation. A lot of times people think, why don't I value the transformation of the Quran? Well, have you experienced yourself as a dog? That the verses that 177, you can go back. The person who doesn't see the sign is like a dog panting. And you give it a bone, you give it, it doesn't satisfy. So have I experienced, when I experience that, then I know what the transformation feels like. And going back to also Suhail's point that, we know when we talk about it, it's an encouraging thing we say, it's incomprehensible why someone would fight cancer. But on the one hand, I want to say it's definitely very, very intelligible and comprehensible. And my reality that I hate cancer and I don't want it for me or for my loved ones, and I will fight it. And this is my reality. And because this reality is so torturous and despairing, that I value the transformation of this despair into a news about my love of life that somebody is giving me. So somebody loves life for me. This news is really good news if I am really terrified of dying. If I already feel I don't have any fear of death, what news are we talking about? So, so just again, reiterating what everyone else said, for myself I don't think I'm seeing anything new, but just for myself, that these presence is really the names that I will come to by reading the signs. And I will read the signs because not reading them leaves me with those things which give me no meaning and torture me, do not satisfy me. So just thank you for giving me the time. Thanks.
Thank you. I like that argument, or not the argument, just the realization that if I really hate death, then there is one, and this feeling is being created, and there is one who also, if I want to keep living, and there is one that is creating me that also doesn't want this death for me. It helps me become conscious of this. This is how I understood what you're saying. But maybe we should continue the text, but I don't understand how I can, for example, let's say I did see this death, and I say, okay, there is one that is creating this and creating the event, and I realize now that this creator does not enjoy death as well, or he's... No, I don't mean it that way. No, I just, okay, how I understand what he says.
I did it, but it was mistake.
No. I see that he will... Anyways, let's move on.
No, please go on.
It isn't well formed. So I will maybe next week if he joins, and then over the next year we'll maybe open. Suhail has his hand up. Please go ahead.
On the third paragraph, when he says, "Then he sees that an all-generous bestower is nurturing him with the delights of bounties material and immaterial." So, it may seem obvious, like what I guess bounties are, materially speaking. Something that I sort of physically experience, but that's tied in with sort of immaterial bounties. So if we see like how we feel or how we think about a situation, I mean, question is like, do I see it as a bounty? Because otherwise I could be, you know, a rock for that matter, or a tree. And to experience like the sort of expanse and breadth of human feeling and thought, to me, is a sort of nurturing, with sort of innumerable bounty that's made known through my sort of quote unquote material experiences. Question is, do I see the generosity in that, even if it's something I don't like per se, but just the very fact that I can feel it and think about it and contemplate and reflect it. To me, at least, that in and of itself is enough. As he says, he offers him thanks and praise with his actions, conducts, words, and as far as he can with all his senses and faculties. Just to know that even just the feeling and the fact that I can experience something, even if it's something I dislike, that is a bounty in and of itself for, as far as I was saying, like a messenger. So I remember like kind of something that stuck with me from many discussions ago. You know, Birkan once said, it's like, if you think about it, like when it's cold outside, it's the winter time right now, and you walk outside and you feel cold. Like you can actually, not just cold in and of itself, but you feel the sensation of it. You can experience it and have a sort of position before it. I mean, that in and of itself is sort of miraculous, and in a way, a miraculous generosity bestowed upon you. That you really just, I mean, something that common everyday experience that we have. Like I walk outside this morning, it was colder and it's raining. Just the fact that you can feel the rain and have some sort of, you know, position before it or relationship with it, or it's, I mean, that, like, question is, how do I respond with that sense back to him? How do I offer my thanks and praise with those senses and faculties to him? That to me is a sort of the, I wouldn't say challenge, but this sort of opportunity that's presented before us in just even a simple life experience.
Thank you for your comments, Riel. Okay. Okay, Brother Yusuf.
I know you are trying to finish, but I will backtrack one paragraph before you.
I'm not trying to finish, so it's okay.
So the second paragraph, I feel like there's a translation issue, and the translation is, if I'm understanding the translation correct, is missing the point. So then he sees that an all-compassionate sustainer wants to make himself loved through the fine fruits of his mercy. So through confining his love and worship to him, he makes God love him, would be a proper translation. But in here he says,
wow.
It
reads as if he forced himself, I need to love him, I need to love him.
Okay. But it is reversed, as if I want the Creator to love me. But what does this mean? Am I really trying God to love me? What's the point? Inshallah, I know one of our attendees are translating a book. And once he translates that book, this paragraph is being explained in there. I guess this is the gist of that book that Abdurrahman insisted not to read but read. So there was the statement, human loves someone just to be loved. So human is in need of being loved. And I love my wife because I want to be loved. This sort of an argument in there. Human is in need of being loved and appreciated, meaning that, for example, what does it mean somebody loves you? It might be loving your, I don't know, face, might be loving some of your quality, you might be smart, whatever, but appreciating you, saying that you are good in this sense. But this desire is in me. On the other hand, it is not, I mean, if you like, I am doomed. If it's going to be my wife, if I am on the hands of my wife to satisfy this need, I am doomed. Because very likely that tomorrow something is going to happen and she's going to say, okay, I don't love you anymore. And what will happen then? Either I will try to do my best, whatever she wants, however she wants me to be, so that I don't lose this love, which is so much of a big trouble. Like, let's say I did it with my wife, then my wife's desire is going to contradict with my mom's desire, but also I want my mom to love me. Then what generally happens is both your mom hates you and your wife hates you. This is, in practice, how it ends up being, right? So, although this human desire to be loved is there, but no living being can satisfy this need. So it is for human, how am I going to satisfy my desire to be loved? And this in here, the author is talking about this very, since Birkan is not the moderator today, existential need of human to be loved. And says that you can attain this, you can satiate this, because you don't need to show off to anybody. So I shouldn't be trying to take the appreciative gazes of beings. This is not what's going to satisfy me. Rather, in the eye of someone, I am being loved, that I am being given existence. Recognizing this, recognizing the gaze of love of him on me is my satisfaction. This is where my satisfaction lies. And in this conversation, the author is attracting attention to here.
Can we say he created you with this need or this tool of desiring love, to be loved, and then he loves you, which you can witness, and both of these are just tools, or this tool or this ability or this need for love is there, or acts as a mirror, using a mirror metaphor, to then see him or know about him or to feel his presence. And this is why that love, that need, desire to be loved is there in the first place, to find him through it.
Yes, because if I love my wife's gaze on me, then I'm losing the point. But if I confine my love to him, as he says in here, confining my love and worship to him, because I might be worshiping my wife as well. What would that mean? I am trying to be as pleasant to her, so much so that she loves me. Practically, I am worshiping her, just so that she smiles at me, or I'm seeing the, sparkling in her eyes when she looks at me. I'm practically worshiping her. Rather, if I change it and say that the whole existence is manifestation of a one who is all merciful, who is all compassionate sustainer, it's not my wife who is sustaining me, who is manifesting her mercy. But anything that I observe in this existence is a manifestation of this absolute source. As much as I am cognizant of this, and then manifestations on me, I see them as manifestations of this I as well. So he is the one that is manifesting and also observing at the same time. As much as I realize this, I'm going to be now saying that, okay, my love is now changing its direction from like my wife in and of herself, then everything being his manifestation. So now I am loving him. I am confining my worship and love to him. I will not love my wife as an external entity, but rather, as much as I start seeing her as a manifestation of mercy, a manifestation of love, and love as such, then I will start realizing that I am being loved by the Eternal One. And this is the only way I can get satisfaction for my unending need for love. If I don't achieve this, then yeah, I will try to satisfy my boss, for example. She has to be satisfied, she has to be happy, so work extra hours. I guess it's a better example. That's not going to hurt our relationship.
For clarification, I follow Farah's, what is it called? Style. And finding him doesn't end my love to my wife. I still love my wife. So this is my style.
Okay. There's some comments. Faraz, would you like to open your comments? Because I think you have a better idea of the context of how you said it.
So, I'm sorry, I'm chatting, it was coming to my mind. I thought maybe these comments can just be for the online participants because they're not crucial. I'm just was thinking as Yusuf was speaking, and I was thinking, so I wrote, so I don't know. It's difficult, but it's sort of implications of what Yusuf's example. So, I don't want to go too far from the discussion. The Yusuf gave a good example. Practical, how practically this can matter, and it's very real. These. So I was just looking at the extensions of that same example, although it's an example but we find ourselves limited in what we can give to each other, and we say, oh, don't expect so much from me, or people expect a lot from me. Or also like, I have done so much, why is the result so little, etc. All of these things come from operating in that, in a world where you are not seeing the signs, you're not confining your, let's say, love and desire and what you are doing as a signs that are going to connect to him as a worship, really. So, in practically speaking, for example, when you love someone, since you are not now loving, ideally, you're not trying to be loved by that person in return, but you do want to be loved, and it will come through that person, whatever in this world you will come, but you know that whatever will come, you are seeing it as a sign of so you're constantly sort of seeing this coming as a little sample of something so much bigger, of whose existence you are tasting and you are getting a sign. And in your own, what you can do, you don't say, well, I cannot do this much, I cannot do this, because once I say it is then I look at myself, I have so much patience, like so much, I feel it's a limited source, I am a limited source, I have only ability to love so much and so on. But once I really can see that, if I am true, honest to myself, that these are not actually my thing, they are coming to me, and I can, because the source is infinite, as I will realize, I won't have this excuse that I will make that I cannot do. Of course I can't do it. Of course I can't love enough. But my maker has infinite. So I will, and how I will get more and more of him in my life by showing more and more, by being a channel for it more and more. So it will result in more easy abundance, if you want to call it that, abundance of what is needed. One finds abundance, much more, let's say, abundance of patience, abundance of wisdom, abundance of compassion, all the things that are, until the human thinks I have to produce them, or they're mine, they're in short supply. And then when you open yourself up, it's not about me. This is it's not my wisdom, it's not my compassion, it's not for me to parcel out in return for something. It is, and then when you become not beholden to that kind of reciprocity, but your reciprocity, your exchange, let's say, your trade is not riba now. If you exchange now, then you're exchanging with the infinite. You're coming to know him, you are manifest. So it becomes definitely practically, very, very practical, real implications it has, but it really, one has to come to it. Mostly in our social lives, rarely people come to this without first suffering a lot. But inshallah, it's possible maybe that people. So anyway, the example is very good one, and so.
So I will talk about some the final paragraphs.
Sure.
He says,
Moderator.
sorry? Thus, through worship and contemplation of this kind, he becomes a true man. He shows that he is on the most excellent of patterns. Through the auspiciousness of belief, he becomes a reliable vicegerent of God's on earth, worthy of bearing the trust. When I was reading the text, like from the beginning, the second aspect until this part, and I read this paragraph and I said, wow, this is great. Like all these paragraphs preceding, before this paragraph, it describes a human being. He like look at things, not only enjoy them or not only dislike them, but also reads them and respond them properly. And he says, yes, this is being human. Like a human being does not just walk on the street, get cold, complain a little bit or enjoy it, doesn't matter. He says, oh, weather is so cold. And then go and drink some hot chocolate. It's not a human being, he says. A true man, true human, walks on the street, gets cold, and he says, cold is created. My sense of cold is created. I can sense it. This is a miracle. I can sense cold. And then he reads, what does it mean? What does it mean I'm feeling cold? What does it mean it's cold? He reads it, he appreciates it, and then he responds. He talks back to the one who creates cold. He says, you know what? I think I know what you mean with cold. I think you want to tell me this and that. And this is my response. I appreciate it. So being such, conscious, such aware, such connected with reality, sucking the reality, like not living it there. You suck reality. You try to juice it, like try to extract everything out of it. So this is human being. And going at the beginning, he was talking about, we shall here summarize the fundamentals before the first aspect. We shall here summarize the fundamentals of worship and of man's duties. So what duties? Right? He said he will explain duties. He didn't talk about any prayer. He didn't talk about, fasting, do not lie, do not steal. He talks about these responses. You see all this beautiful creation and you responded. This is your duty. Your duty is appreciate them, read them, try to understand them, question them, but at the same time respond them. And this is not like as we discussed from the beginning, this is not an external duty that somebody is trying to impose on you. This is how you feel. When you get cold, when you don't like it, this dislike takes you somewhere. You have to respond. Furkan, give the response. You can choose not to do it. Live your life as a non-human being. But this is, he says at least, this is being a true man. Through worship and contemplation of this kind, he becomes a true human. And this is being on the most excellent of patterns. Seeing an earthquake, dislike it, but don't stop there. Dive into this dislike. Do not let this dislike leave you without telling you the news. Dive into it. Like hold it, try to read it, and see where it takes you. And give your response. Talk back.
Thank you. Inshallah, we will try to live in a more responsive state. Does anyone have any last comments? Thank you for joining, everyone. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم الحمد لله رب العالمين.